Every morning at 5:30 a.m., the alarm would ring and Maya would already be awake. She had trained herself to wake up before the sound, as if her body knew that even sleep was a luxury she couldn't fully afford. The first thing she saw was her reflection in the bedroom mirror. Hair perfect from sleeping on a silk pillowcase, skin clear from an expensive nighttime routine, but eyes that told a different story. Maya was 31 years old and lived in a world that looked perfect from the outside. Her apartment was on the 20th floor of a glass building downtown, with windows that showed the entire city spread out below her like a glittering carpet. Everything in her home had its place. The white leather sofa positioned just right, the coffee table books arranged by color, fresh flowers delivered every Tuesday that she never really had time to enjoy. Her walk-in closet was her pride and her prison. Rows of business suits hung like soldiers in formation, navy blue, charcoal gray, midnight black. Each one cost more than most people spent on clothes in a year. Her shoe collection filled an entire wall, heels organized by height and color. Everything was beautiful, everything was expensive, and everything felt like a costume she had to wear to play a role she wasn't sure she wanted anymore. Maya worked at a big advertising company in the heart of the city. Her office was on the 15th floor, with glass walls that made her feel like she was always on display. She had worked her way up from a junior position to become the youngest creative director in the company's history. Everyone respected her. Everyone wanted to be like her. Everyone thought she had it all figured out. But the truth was different. Maya hadn't taken a real day off in 2 years. She ate lunch at her desk while answering emails, if she remembered to eat lunch at all. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from clients, colleagues, and her boss. Even when she got home at night, she would keep checking her emails until she fell asleep with her laptop still open beside her. Her family was proud of her success, but they lived 3 hours away in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. When she visited, which wasn't often, her mother would show her off to the neighbors like she was a trophy. "Look at our Maya," she would say, "working with all those important companies in the big city." Her father would pat her shoulder and tell her how much money she must be making, as if that was the only measure of a life well lived. Maya had a few friends from college, but they had all gotten married and started families while she was building her career. When they met for coffee, which happened less and less these days, they talked about their children's first words and school plays, while Maya shared stories about late-night presentations and difficult clients. The conversations felt like they were speaking different languages. Dating was almost impossible. Maya tried the apps, went on dinner dates with men who seemed impressed by her job title and intimidated by her success in equal measure. Some wanted to be taken care of. Others wanted to compete with her. None of them seemed to see the real person behind the professional achievements. After a while, she stopped trying altogether. Her days blurred together in a routine that felt both familiar and suffocating. Wake up, work out for exactly 45 minutes, shower, spend 30 minutes on hair and makeup, choose the right outfit for whatever meeting she had that day, grab coffee on the way to work, spend 10 to 12 hours in meetings and at her computer, order dinner to the office or grab something quick on the way home, answer more emails, fall asleep exhausted, and start over again. The weekends weren't much better. She would catch up on work she didn't finish during the week, do laundry, grocery shop for food she barely had time to cook, and maybe watch something on Netflix while answering emails on her phone. Sometimes she would lie in bed on Sunday mornings and wonder where her life had gone. But then Monday would come and she would get dressed and go back to the office like nothing had happened. Maya had everything she thought she wanted when she was 21 and fresh out of college with big dreams about changing the world through creativity and hard work. She had the job, the apartment, the bank account, the respect of her peers. She had achieved every goal she had set for herself. So why did she feel so empty inside? The feeling started small, like a tiny crack in a window that you don't notice, until it begins to spread. At first, she thought she was just tired and needed a vacation, but even when she thought about taking time off, she couldn't imagine what she would do with herself. Her identity had become so wrapped up in her work that she didn't know who she was without it. She began to notice things that bothered her before but that she had pushed aside. The way her shoulders were always tense from stress, how her stomach hurt from drinking too much coffee and not eating regular meals. The fact that she couldn't remember the last time she had laughed until her sides hurt, or felt genuinely excited about something that wasn't work-related. Maya looked successful, and by every measure society used, she was successful. But success, she was learning, didn't automatically equal happiness. And happiness felt like something that happened to other people. People who had time for things like hobbies and relationships and lazy Sunday afternoons. It happened on a Tuesday morning during the monthly board meeting. Maya was presenting the new campaign for their biggest client, standing in front of 12 executives in expensive suits, clicking through slides she had worked on until 3 in the morning. The presentation was going well. Everyone was nodding, taking notes, asking the right questions. Then suddenly the room started spinning. Maya felt her chest tighten like someone was squeezing her heart with both hands. Her breathing became short and fast, like she had just run up 10 flights of stairs. The faces around the conference table started to blur, and she could hear her own voice getting quieter and quieter until she wasn't sure if she was still speaking at all. "Excuse me," she managed to say, her voice sounding strange and far away. "I need a moment." She walked out of the conference room as calmly as she could, but the moment the door closed behind her, she practically ran to the nearest bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and sat down, putting her head between her knees like her high school nurse had taught her years ago. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst. For a terrifying moment, she wondered if she was having a heart attack. She was only 31, but she had heard stories of young, successful people who pushed themselves too hard and paid the ultimate price. After what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes, Maya's breathing started to return to normal. She splashed cold water on her face and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back was a stranger. Her skin was pale despite her expensive foundation. Her eyes looked hollow and tired, with dark circles that even her concealer couldn't hide. When had she started looking so worn out? Maya returned to the conference room and somehow finished her presentation. Everyone complimented her work, but she barely heard them. All she could think about was getting through the rest of the day, without falling apart again. That evening, instead of staying late at the office like usual, Maya packed up her things and went home. She ordered Chinese takeout and sat on her perfect white couch staring out at the city lights. For the first time in months, she actually tasted her food instead of just eating it while doing something else. After dinner, she found herself looking through her phone contacts. She scrolled past the names of colleagues and clients until she found her sister's number. Arya lived on the other side of town, in a neighborhood Maya rarely visited. They used to be close when they were kids, but their lives had gone in completely different directions. While Maya had focused on climbing the corporate ladder, Arya had chosen a different path. She was an art teacher at a community center, and in her spare time she made pottery and painted murals around the city. Maya had always thought her sister was wasting her talents, but now she wasn't so sure. Maya stared at Arya's number for 20 minutes before she finally worked up the courage to call. "Maya?" Arya's voice was surprised but warm. "Is everything okay? You never called during the week." Maya started, then stopped. How could she explain what had happened without sounding like she was losing her mind? "I had a panic attack. Today. During a meeting." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "Oh, honey," Arya said softly. "Are you all right? Do you need me to come over?" "No, I'm home now. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I have everything I ever wanted. I should be happy." "Should be and actually being are two different things," Arya said gently. "When was the last time you did something just because it made you happy? Not because it was good for your career or because someone expected it from you, but just because you enjoyed it?" Maya thought about it. She couldn't remember. "I can't even remember what makes me happy anymore," Maya admitted. "I wake up, go to work, come home, go to sleep, and start over again. I feel like I'm living someone else's life." "You know," Arya said, "I'm working on a new pottery project tonight. Why don't you come over? You don't have to do anything except sit and watch, if you want." Sometimes being around creativity helps clear your head. Maya looked around her perfect apartment with its perfect furniture and perfect view. Nothing about it felt like home anymore. I don't think I remember how to just sit and watch, Maya said. That's exactly why you should come over, Arya replied. You don't have to perform here. You don't have to be impressive or productive or any of those things. You can just be you. Maya realized she wasn't even sure who that was anymore. The drive across town took 45 minutes in evening traffic. Maya spent the entire time thinking about her life, really thinking about it for the first time in years. When had work stopped being something she did and started being everything she was? When had she stopped having conversations about anything except deadlines and client meetings? She parked outside Arya's building, a converted warehouse in an artsy neighborhood full of galleries and coffee shops. The area was so different from her sterile downtown apartment building. Here the buildings had character. The sidewalks were lined with murals and street art. People walked their dogs and sat on stoops talking to their neighbors. Maya sat in her car for a few minutes, still wearing her expensive business suit, feeling completely out of place. But for the first time, in a long time, that didn't feel like a bad thing. Maya stood outside Arya's apartment building, her car keys still in her hand, looking up at the old warehouse that her sister called home. The building had character that her sleek downtown apartment lacked. Red brick walls, fire escapes with plants growing on them, and windows that actually opened to let in fresh air instead of recycled office building atmosphere. She had been standing there for almost 15 minutes, which was longer than she usually spent making any decision. In her work life, Maya prided herself on being decisive, quick-thinking, always ready with an answer. But here, wearing her navy blue business suit and carrying her leather briefcase, she felt like she was about to cross into a completely different world. Her phone buzzed with another work email. Then another. Maya looked at the screen and saw 17 new messages from the past hour. Her boss wanting updates on 3 different projects. A client with last-minute changes to a campaign that was supposed to launch tomorrow. Her assistant asking about her schedule for next week. For the first time in her career, Maya turned off her phone completely. The front door to the building was painted bright yellow, which seemed like something Arya would choose. Maya pressed the buzzer for apartment 4B and heard her sister's voice through the intercom, cheerful and paint-splattered, if voices could look paint-splattered. Come on up. The elevator's broken, but it's good exercise. Maya climbed 4 flights of stairs, her high heels clicking on each step. By the time she reached the 4th floor, she was slightly out of breath, which reminded her that she hadn't been to the gym in 3 weeks despite paying for an expensive membership she never used. Arya opened the apartment door before Maya could knock. She was wearing old jeans with holes in the knees and a t-shirt covered in what looked like clay fingerprints. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun with a pencil stuck through it, and she had a smudge of blue paint on her cheek. She looked completely relaxed and genuinely happy to see Maya. I'm so glad you came, Arya said, giving Maya a hug that smelled like art supplies and herbal tea. I was worried about you after our phone call. Maya stepped into the apartment and felt like she had entered a completely different universe. The walls were covered with Arya's artwork, paintings, sketches, photographs, pottery pieces displayed on floating shelves. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable looking, with soft blankets thrown over chairs and cushions that actually looked like people sat on them regularly. There was a pottery wheel set up near the big windows, with clay covered, tools scattered on a wooden table. Half-finished pieces sat on shelves waiting to be glazed or fired. The whole space felt alive in a way that Maya's perfect apartment never did. Sorry about the mess, Arya said, clearing some art books off the couch. I was working on a new series and kind of lost track of time. It's not messy, Maya said, looking around. It's lived in, real. They sat on the couch with cups of herbal tea that tasted like flowers and honey. Arya didn't ask about work or Maya's presentation or the panic attack. Instead, she talked about the community center where she taught art classes to kids and teenagers, about the mural she was planning for the side of a local grocery store, about the pottery pieces she was working on for a small gallery show next month. Maya found herself actually listening, not just waiting for her turn to talk about her own projects and deadlines. She realized that she hadn't had a real conversation in months, maybe longer. At work, everything was about solving problems and meeting goals. With clients, everything was about impressing them and keeping them happy. Even with her family, conversations usually centered around her career achievements. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said after a while. "Of course." "Do you ever feel like you're not living your real life? Like you're just playing a role that someone else wrote for you?" Arya set down her teacup and really looked at Maya. "You know, I used to feel that way when I was trying to be the person everyone else wanted me to be. Remember when Mom and Dad wanted me to get a business degree and work in an office like you?" Maya nodded. She remembered her parents being disappointed when Arya chose art school instead of something more practical. "I tried it for about 6 months, Arya continued. "I got a job at an accounting firm, wore suits every day, sat in meetings where people talked about quarterly reports and profit margins. I was miserable. I felt like I was suffocating in someone else's clothes." Maya looked down at her own expensive suit, her uncomfortable shoes, her briefcase full of papers and devices that connected her to work 24 hours a day. "But weren't you scared?" Maya asked. "About not having enough money or security or, I don't know, respect?" "Terrified," Arya admitted. "But I was more scared of spending my whole life pretending to be someone I wasn't. And you know what? I have enough money. I'm not rich like you, but I can pay my rent and buy groceries and art supplies. I sleep well at night. I wake up excited about my day. I have friends who actually know me, not just the professional version of me." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. When was the last time she had woken up excited about anything? "I don't even know who I am anymore," Maya whispered. "I look in the mirror and see this successful woman that everyone admires, but I don't recognize her. I don't know what I actually like or want or care about." "So let's find out," Arya said simply. She stood up and walked over to her closet, pulling out a pair of jeans and a soft cotton t-shirt. "These will probably fit you. Why don't you change out of that suit and we can work with clay for a while? You don't have to make anything good or impressive. You can just play around and see how it feels." Maya looked at the casual clothes in Arya's hands, then down at her own professional armor. Her suit was like a costume she wore to play the role of successful businesswoman. The shoes forced her to walk a certain way. The fitted jacket made her stand straighter. The whole outfit was designed to impress other people, not to be comfortable or express who she really was. For a moment, Maya felt panic rising in her chest again. What if she took off the suit and there was nothing underneath? What if the successful professional woman was all there was, and without the costume she would just disappear? But then she looked at Arya, standing there with paint on her shirt and clay under her fingernails, looking more confident and beautiful than Maya had felt in years. "Okay," Maya said quietly. "Let's try something different." The next morning, Maya woke up in Arya's guest room wearing borrowed pajamas that were 2 sizes too big, and somehow more comfortable than her expensive silk nightgown at home. She had stayed the night after spending hours working with clay, her hands getting dirty for the first time in years. Her fingernails, usually perfectly manicured, still had traces of clay under them, and she found herself staring at them like they belonged to someone else. Maya had called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The lie came easier than she expected, maybe because part of her really was sick. Sick of pretending, sick of performing, sick of living a life that looked perfect but felt empty. Over the next few days, Maya found herself spending more and more time at Arya's apartment. At first, she told herself it was just temporary, a short break while she figured things out. But each day, going back to her own sterile apartment became harder. Her downtown high-rise felt like a museum where she was the only exhibit, perfectly preserved but not really living. Arya didn't push or ask too many questions. She simply made space for Maya in her world. They would have breakfast together. Real breakfast, not the protein bars Maya usually ate while checking emails. They would work on art projects side by side, Arya with her pottery and paintings, Maya experimenting with different materials, discovering that her hands could create things besides presentations and spreadsheets. The hardest part was facing her real life. Maya's phone buzzed constantly with messages from her boss, her assistant, her clients. At first, she answered every call, attended every video meeting from Arya's kitchen table, tried to maintain her professional responsibilities. while secretly falling apart inside. But slowly something began to shift. Maya started setting boundaries she had never set before. She began turning off her phone during meals. She stopped checking emails after 8 in the evening. When her boss called on a Saturday morning demanding an immediate response to a client crisis, Maya let it go to voicemail and dealt with it Monday morning instead. Each small act of rebellion felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. Maya started having difficult conversations she had been avoiding for years. She talked to her boss about her workload, explaining that she needed to delegate more and work more reasonable hours. She had honest discussions with her parents about their expectations, helping them understand that success meant different things to different people. Most importantly, she began having conversations with herself about what she actually wanted from her life. The changes started small. Maya began wearing more comfortable shoes to work, trading her painful heels for flats that let her walk without thinking about each step. She started eating lunch away from her desk, sometimes even going to the park across from her office building to sit on a bench and watch people live their lives. She discovered that the city was full of things she had never noticed before. Street musicians playing on corners, couples walking hand in hand, kids feeding pigeons in the park, elderly people sitting on benches sharing stories. All this life was happening around her every day, and she had been too busy staring at screens to see it. Maya also started saying no to things that didn't serve her anymore. Weekend work events that used to feel mandatory suddenly became optional. Networking dinners where she spent hours making small talk with people she didn't particularly like became things she could politely decline. Business trips that ate up her personal time became opportunities to suggest that someone else on her team could handle them instead. Her colleagues noticed the changes. Some of them seemed confused by her new boundaries. Her boss asked if everything was all right, clearly concerned about her sudden interest in work-life balance. A few clients complained about her slower response times. But Maya also noticed that the world didn't end when she stopped being available 24 hours a day. Projects still got completed. Problems still got solved. The company kept running, without her constant involvement. The most surprising discovery was how much energy she had been spending on maintaining her professional image. The perfect hair, the expensive clothes, the flawless makeup, the carefully curated social media presence. All of it required constant attention and effort. When Maya started relaxing these standards, she found herself with time and mental space she hadn't had in years. She began exploring parts of herself that had been buried under layers of professional achievement. Maya signed up for a pottery class at the community center where Arya taught. She was terrible at it at first, her perfectionist tendencies making it hard to accept wonky bowls and lopsided vases. But gradually, she learned to find joy in the process rather than obsessing over the results. Maya also started reading again, not industry magazines or business books that would help her career, but novels and poetry and memoirs that fed her soul. She remembered how much she used to love getting lost in stories when she was younger, before she decided that reading for pleasure was a waste of time that could be better spent on professional development. She began taking walks without a destination, something that would have seemed impossible during her old life when every moment had to be productive. These wandering walks through different neighborhoods became a form of meditation, a way to quiet the constant chatter in her head about deadlines and deliverables. Maya's relationship with her family began to change too. Instead of calling them with updates about her latest promotion or biggest client win, she started sharing smaller, more personal things. She told them about the pottery class, about books she was reading, about interesting people she had met. To her surprise, these conversations felt more meaningful than all their previous talks about her professional accomplishments. 6 months after that Tuesday morning panic attack, Maya stood in front of her bedroom mirror again, but everything was different. She was wearing jeans and a soft sweater instead of a business suit. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, instead of an elaborate style that took 30 minutes to create. Her face was free of the heavy makeup she used to think was necessary to look professional. For the first time in years, she recognized the person looking back at her. Maya had made the decision to leave her corporate job 3 months earlier. The conversation with her boss had been difficult but not as dramatic as she had expected. She had given proper notice, helped train her replacement, and finished her current projects. When she cleaned out her office, packing up the awards and certificates that had once seemed so important, she felt lighter with each box she carried out. The expensive suits still hung in her closet, but now they were choices rather than uniforms. Maya kept a few favorites for the consulting work she had started doing, helping small businesses with their marketing strategies. She worked with local restaurants, art galleries, and community organizations, places where she could see the direct impact of her work and connect with real people instead of corporate executives who seemed to care more about profit margins than human connections. Her income was lower now, but her life was infinitely richer. Maya had moved out of her downtown apartment and found a smaller place in the same neighborhood as Arya. Her new home had character, hardwood floors that creaked in places, windows that actually opened, a small balcony where she could grow herbs and flowers. The rent was half what she used to pay, and every morning she woke up grateful to be there. Maya had also opened a small pottery studio in the warehouse building where Arya lived. She called it Making Space, both a reference to the physical act of shaping clay and the emotional work of creating room for authentic self-expression. The name came from that moment when she had asked Arya to make space for her real self, dropping all the professional armor that had been weighing her down. 3 evenings a week, Maya taught pottery classes to other professionals who, like her former self, were searching for something real beneath their polished exteriors. Her students were lawyers and accountants, doctors and teachers, marketing executives and bank managers, people who had successful careers but felt like something was missing from their lives. Maya loved watching their faces the first time they touched clay. Most of them came to class straight from work, still wearing their business clothes, still carrying the stress of their days in their shoulders and facial expressions. But something magical happened when they sat down at the pottery wheel. Their professional masks would gradually slip away as they focused on the simple act of shaping clay with their hands. One of her favorite students was Elena, a bank manager, who had been working 70-hour weeks for the past 5 years. Elena came to her first class wearing a perfectly pressed suit and apologizing for her lack of artistic ability. 6 weeks later, she was arriving in jeans and a t-shirt, her hands already relaxed and ready to work. Elena started taking lunch, breaks for the first time in years, and even negotiated a flexible work schedule that allowed her to leave the office at reasonable hours. Maya's story had quietly inspired others in ways she never expected. Word spread through professional networks about the successful marketing director, who had walked away from corporate success to teach pottery. Some people thought she was crazy, but others saw her as someone who had found the courage to do what they were afraid to do themselves. Maya's relationship with her family had deepened in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her parents visited her new studio and watched her teach a class, seeing a side of their daughter they had never known existed. Her mother, who had always worried that Maya was working too hard, finally relaxed when she saw how peaceful and content her daughter had become. Arya and Maya had grown closer than they had been since childhood. They often worked side by side in their studios, sharing ideas and techniques, supporting each other through creative blocks and breakthroughs. Maya realized that she had missed out on years of friendship with her sister because she had been too busy climbing career ladders to maintain personal relationships. Maya's days now had a rhythm that felt natural instead of forced. She woke up when her body was ready, not when an alarm demanded it. She ate meals mindfully, tasting her food, instead of consuming fuel while multitasking. She had conversations with friends that went deeper than small talk about work and weather. She read books that made her think and feel, attended concerts and art shows, took long walks without checking her phone every few minutes. The pottery studio became more than just a place to teach classes. Maya hosted community events, art shows, featuring local artists and workshops on stress relief and mindfulness. The space became a gathering place for people who were interested in living more authentic, connected lives. Maya also started writing, documenting her journey from corporate success to personal fulfillment. She shared her story on a simple blog, not to build a personal brand or generate business leads, but because she wanted other people to know that it was possible to change course, even when everyone around you thought you had it all figured out. Her writing attracted attention from people all over the country who were struggling with similar feelings of professional success but personal emptiness. Maya received emails from lawyers who felt trapped in prestigious firms, doctors who had lost their passion for helping people, teachers who were burned out from an educational system that valued test scores over actual learning. Maya's transformation wasn't dramatic or overnight. It was a gradual process of shedding layers of expectations and discovering who she really was underneath all the professional achievements and societal pressures. She learned that happiness wasn't something you earned through success or purchased with a high salary. It was something you created by living authentically and making choices that aligned with your true values. The moment when Maya had dropped her professional outfit and asked to make space had been the beginning of making space for her true self. She learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take off the costume you've been wearing and ask for room to become who you really are.